Mervyn Dillon's coaching contract expires at the end of April. And will we see a new Trinidad and Tobago head coach come into this fair? He is allowed to apply, and he says that he will apply. When we spoke to him last week, he did tell me that he will apply for the position, but it is up for grabs. And it was in his previous contract that at the end of his contract, this time on April 30th, the position will be advertised. So far, Samuel Badri has thrown his hat into the ring, as well as Imran Jan. I want to welcome to the show former West Indies cricketer Daren Ganga via Skype to talk us through Trinidad and Tobago cricket. Daren, Trinidad and Tobago cricket has not seen the type of success that fans want to see, not since you've been captain. Why?
First of all, good morning, Ryan. Good morning to all your viewers. That's a reloaded question you asked me there. I think it has to do with a combination of factors. One, we've been in a bit of a transition. Many of the players who have had seniority at the time that I played, and even just afterwards, you know, they have not been available for Trinidad and Tobago. So you've found that team over the years being a team that is littered with a lot of young, inexperienced players, and very rarely you have the continuity in having a senior player carry and transition these young players into the first-class setup. So I think the lack of experience is one reason. I always believe in preparation, which is the second point I'd like to make. I don't think that our preparation going into tournaments is complete, is sufficient. That is a factor that is a constant work in progress. And with the evolution of the game today, I think it's very important for whoever is coaching this national team to make sure that they occur with, you know, best practice, modern coaching methodologies, and someone who has the continuity to move from year to year so that his or her philosophies as a coach will be able to carry on and be to the benefit of the team.
I want to add a third point to that one, because the management of the Trinidad and Tobago Red Force team has also fallen off. We've had Kelvin Williams before Mervyn Dillon. Now we've had Mervyn Dillon. What qualities should we be looking for in the next Trinidad and Tobago coach?
Well, a coach today at the first-class level must be a coach that is tactically sound, someone who possesses the level 3 coaching certificate and would have had a reasonable amount of experience coaching teams at the first-class level. That's one. The second is, you know, a player and a person who possibly would have played at the international level so that they can bring that sort of experience, you know, ensure that the young players, they have something to look forward to, and someone who can add a certain type of visioning for a team going forward. A lot of coaching today at the first-class level and international level has to do with interpersonal skills, man management skills, how you relate to players who are playing at the international level and very experienced, as against relating to players who are now finding their feet, who are coming off of the youth level and transitioning. So that sort of communication, that sort of emotional intelligence is very crucial for a coach. And I think that if you marry all those things together, you will have a successful and very progressive coach.
So far, we have Samuel Badri, we have Mervyn Dillon, we have Imran Jan, and Tony Gray is considering it. Your choice, who would you pick?
Well, I mean, I think all these coaches, they have their own individual strengths. I think when you look at the landscape and you look at what Mervyn Dillon has accomplished with this Trinidad and Tobago team, you would say that he must have had a passing grade. You look at the Super 50 series, the Trinidad and Tobago Red Force team made it to the semi-final and then lost out. You look at the Professional Cricket League, where they placed second, albeit 30 points or so short of Barbados, who were eventually crowned champions. I think when you also look at the fact that there's not been any sort of issues that Mervyn Dillon has coached during his tenure the last year, would have been consulted upon. If I'm an employer and I've employed a coach, and if you haven't sort of written to me or convened a meeting with me with regard to issues, then in my estimation, I'm doing a great job. And as far as I understand, Mervyn Dillon was actually given a one-year contract with the intent of, you know, him and his success, him getting an extended run. So that was what we've been hearing. That is what I've heard from Mervyn Dillon himself. I don't think he's received any communication that this is the route that the board is now going to go in, where there is going to be a post advertised. So I think Mervyn Dillon will be the ideal choice to continue with this Trinidad and Tobago team. He's already sort of laid the parameters out for the senior players. He can command the respect of the younger ones. And you look at the record in the Professional Cricket League, you see there are about 8 centuries scored, 3 wins. A team that has not even made it in the top 3 in the last 3 or 4 years, having achieved that this year. So a reasonable person would look at that landscape and say, hey, this guy must have a competitive advantage over his other candidates.
Whoever gets the position, Daren, will face a challenge. And I want to refer to something you just said. He's laid out the parameters for the senior players. That's a very crucial statement that you just made, because there was an issue just before Mervyn Dillon's contract ended between him and Dinesh Ramdin. He said that Dinesh Ramdin said he didn't want him in the team. Mervyn Dillon questioned Dinesh Ramdin's work ethic. And we explored that conversation further in another interview I did with him. And, this is a long-standing problem with Trinidad and Tobago's senior players, not least Caribbean cricketers, when they come back to this level. I think you're a little bit familiar with that problem as well, that you would have perhaps had during your playing days. Whoever gets the job, Daren, will have this problem of managing those senior players who come from West Indies cricket down to Trinidad and Tobago cricket.
Sure, and listen, this is not an issue that is confined to West Indian cricket or Trinidad and Tobago cricket. It's a reality that most captains and most coaches face across the globe. You have players who are maturing, who are developing, who are achieving success, and you have a lot of egos bouncing around in a room. So there will be conflict. If you go into a position as coach in a national setup or first class setup, and you think it's going to be a walk in the park, then you're not the right person for the job. It's the reality of playing sport, and it's the reality of playing sport at the highest level. So I think you will see those things, but it's important to address that, and address that consistent with the vision, with the ethos of the team, and your philosophy as a coach. And there must be, I would say, ownership. If you empower young players, you empower a team, you set the correct work ethic and the codes of conduct that you want to operate by, and players are going against that, then by all means, there needs to be a big stick sort of approach. And when I looked at that issue with Dinesh Ramdin, I felt that there wasn't a real issue in what he was saying. There were a lot of other issues that he was raising to the fore, and whether rightly so or wrongly so, those things are supposed to be dealt with within the confines of a team. So it's very unfortunate to see what transpired, but I do hope that Trinidad and Tobago, they will get the right person to lead this national setup. I also understand that in January 2020, this is something, a little birdie told me that Floyd Reefer had a meeting with the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. So I'm not quite sure what the nature of that meeting was, but maybe it's something to investigate. Maybe Floyd Reefer might be also a candidate in this race for being the coach of Trinidad and Tobago.
Very interesting. Why not you? Why not Daren Ganga?
Well, I think, Ryan, I've not really done a lot of coaching at that first class level. I really don't have any sort of plans to become a coach. I think the work that I do on comms and during matches, I'm very well placed there. I'm happy in pronouncing on the game. I'm happy in continuing to share my experience with a lot of players across the globe. It gives me a different perspective on the game. As you can see, it gives you a chance to see what is happening in the different jurisdictions. You're seeing the direction in which the world game is going. So I had my chance of serving for about 5 or 6 years as an elected member of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. That's a National League representative, where I represented the interests of the clubs. And I realized that, the administration, the powers that be, they don't really want to take cricket in the direction that is consistent with the way the global game is going. So I've really come to terms with that. I will continue to make my contribution on the ground, in commentary. I also have my academies that run. So I will continue to be open to young players and to players, and sharing my advice in the interests of the progression of the game.
Daren Ganga, thank you very much, my friend, for this interview. Please stay safe during this pandemic.
Thank you very much. And for everyone in Trinidad and Tobago and the world over, be safe and do the right things. Make the right decisions.
Thank you very much. Former West Indies captain Daren Ganga talking to us as Trinidad and Tobago cricket searches for a new head coach.